Hello, Julie Barkus here. Welcome to Get Connected with Julie and
Michael Tassner. Hi, good morning, everyone.
good morning. It's so good to be here, and the sun is out, but I heard it's going to be storming later on. So,
Oh boy, well, we got some beautiful weather in Buffalo. The weather's been fantastic the last couple of days.
Oh, nice. Well, and speaking of stormy, I think the topic today ties right in with that because it's about difficult people.
Definitely.
And if you've ever been in a situation, and I think all of us have been in that situation where we've had to deal with difficult people, whether it's a difficult client, family member, staff member, whoever it might be, but somebody who really throws a wrench in our day is like, oh, whoa, wait a second. How do I handle that? We're going to be talking about that today and more. So
Definitely.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have kind of been asking, not just, how do you deal with challenging people, but I know a lot of you listening are having some challenges with some of your staff and team members that you would probably label them being difficult. I'll use air quotes. I know that you're having some challenges with some particular families and things like that. So we thought that this would be a good timely topic, and we'll share some other kind of actions and wins from the week and lessons learned and all that good stuff. So there's always lots of things we can share with you, but we thought that the whole topic of difficult people would be a good one for today.
It's always a hot topic. And I think I've been a student of difficult people from the time I entered, from the time I was born. So I was going to say from the time I entered corporate America, but no, it wasn't. It was just like, really understanding human behavior and why people are difficult and what we could do to change difficult people, even when it comes to gossip. I mean, what do you do when you're faced with that person who is the gossiper? So we actually wrote at one time we wrote, and we have it out there, but it's a whole program on dealing with gossip in the workplace. And, I think it always starts like anything else with having a vision for what you want your workplace to look like. And if you think, oh my goodness, we're a group of women working together, there's always going to be gossip, there's always going to be difficult situations, then that's what we're going to be bringing to life. So it's really about, again, cultivating the vision for what you want to transpire and then moving towards that. And there's some great strategies that you can implement to make the people part of the equation much, 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 much easier. So
Definitely.
Yeah. But before we, dive into difficult people, let's look at, some of the things that we've been dealing with this week. So is there anything that's come up for you, Michael, this week that's been a hot topic with some of your owners?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just thinking off the top of my head as we speak. I mean, a lot of people are trying to figure out, and it again depends on the areas that you're in, but should you have any kind of shortened summer camp? So there's been a lot of owners that normally would have already started summer camp. Some of the centers more on the East Coast, for example, summer camp would be starting in about a week or two that they're trying to figure out, can we execute a summer camp? Should we execute it? So that's definitely been a topic that we could kind of talk about. So I've seen a lot of that and just a lot of the stuff that we talked about last week of the right ways to conduct tours. A lot of questions still around virtual. Do we only do virtual? Do we just try and do just one family appointments? Like how do we get that back in the right frame, so to speak? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of the centers that we're working with, I mean, this is going to be coming up on prime enrollment time. And a lot of centers, they're enrolling year round, but I mean, typically July, August tend to be really strong enrollment months. And it's never a good thing if you're kind of waffling on tours and follow-up and kind of all of that stuff. So I think just a lot of questions around planning and next steps. Like what do we have to start getting in place now so that let's say July, for example, mid-July, that all of our ducks are in a row and we've got a good process so that if they normally would add 50 enrollments, 30, 200, whatever that number is, that number not only hits your goal, but exceeds it.
Yeah.
Kind of the big topics.
So what do you say when when they ask you about summer camp? So what's your biggest golden nugget of advice on that?
So what I like about summer camp is if you've been doing it in the past, and you have the ability to execute it, I'm encouraging the centers to simply pivot a little bit based on what they were planning on doing. So a lot of the summer camps, they were doing lots of field trips and things like that. So kind of bring some of those field trips back to your center. So if you were going to go to a zoo one of the weeks and you were learning about animals, for example, I'm encouraging them to bring, traveling animals and things like that. to your center, for example, and turn it into a little bit more of kind of a learning session back at your center. So if they were kind of not only relying on this income, because again, I know a lot of these centers, I mean, they've gotten beaten up from a financial standpoint, that it's still, if it's still viable in the sense of you've got the team, you're able to kind of pivot your program a little bit. We're seeing a lot of different regulations for summer camp versus, I mean, traditional childcare, for example. If you're outside a little bit more, that a lot of the guidelines are a little bit more relaxed. So they're not necessarily, I mean, making sure that you have the kids distanced and kind of all of these intense guidelines. We'll just use the word intense. So, I mean, a lot of centers, they're kind of ruling out summer camp, and they're going to go put all their eggs in the basket of let's make sure we have just an amazing enrollment season come July, August. But again, if there's definitely a need for it. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the centers have kind of been asking those questions, because they're getting those questions of, hey, are you guys going to do anything? Are you going to do, some of the centers have pivoted a little bit to drop off, which is not necessarily that easy to execute. But I will tell you that if you're able to accommodate something like that, that's been a really great selling factor. That if a parent wants to, let's say it's a day or two a week or something like that, then it's not babysitting. So they're not dropping in for 2 hours or something like that. But we're finding that conversion then from those families to full-time enrollments, or even at least part-time, a little bit more structure, has been strong. But anyways, I digress a little bit, but we've been advising, if they have the systems in place, to still try and execute a summer camp.
All right. Well, good information there. And speaking of summer camp and speaking of animals, one of the things that's been coming up for my clients is really about, oh, what do we do? So they might have radio advertisements going on, or they're looking at marketing and other things. And they're like, how do we, put a message out there? And a lot of times people are looking at being the same as everybody else. And what I've been telling my clients is to be the purple elephant. So if you have a whole line of like gray elephants, which are all the childcare programs in your area, you want to be the purple elephant. And this has been the biggest nugget of advice I've been offering all week, is how do you really stand out and be the purple elephant? So look at what everybody else is doing and then do something totally different. Because if the only thing people are looking at when they come in for a tour is your list of items compared to somebody else's list of items, it's just going to be like, well, who's got the most on their list? And that's not what we want to have happen. What we want to have happen is a dynamic that we create that shows people how different we are and allow people the opportunity to really emotionally connect with us, so they could say, yeah, okay, you're the center that I want to enroll at. You are the place that is going to change the life of my little Johnny. So look for ways to be the purple elephant. That's been the biggest thing that I've been talking about this week.
So
whether it's radio advertising, whether it's websites, whether it's whatever you're doing, how do you stand out and be different?
So give us an example. So I love that concept of, be the purple elephant, because in a lot of parents' eyes, childcare is childcare. So like you said, if they're, example, if you have the people that are price shopping, and it's just the nature of how people are, that even if price isn't the number one factor, they're still going to kind of price shop, and they're going to take out their little notepad and they're going to write down a couple of centers that are give or take within 5 to 8 miles of their house, and maybe some that they've either driven by or they've heard some of their friends or family members have attended, and they'll write them down. And as you said, they're going to start to go through the list. Okay, do you have early drop off? Do you have, are the meals there? They're going to go through those items. So what are a couple of examples of how could we stand out, even like with the radio ad, for example, or the website? Would love to hear an idea or two.
Yeah, so to me, the purple elephant idea came before one of my childcare business success conferences. I was actually driving through a little town out here called Crystal Lake, Illinois, and I saw this big billboard, and it was filled with all of these elephants in a row, except for this one purple elephant. And ever since then, I'm like, the purple elephant concept is so brilliant, because it's like, how do we be that one? And since then, we've seen a lot of those videos, and maybe you've even seen them, Michael, where they go viral, where it's, a dance show. And you've got that one little girl who's like just really hamming it up, and everybody's just doing the steps. And the one girl is like, like, pay attention to me and watch me, and I'm doing something incredible, and everybody's like, oh, look at her. And everybody's watching that one person who's doing something different. That's how the concept really evolved in my mind. So when we're looking at radio ads, when we're looking at advertising, to me, it really has to start with your vision and the values and what you do, because your values drive behaviors in your organization. So we look at the values and say, well, what kind of behaviors or what kind of actions are we taking in our center that is different than what everybody else is doing? So for example, position yourself as small, position yourself as elite, own those words. If you are small, a lot of people are like, but we're small and but we're this, but we're that, but own those things and you'll attract people who want that small elite experience. So on your website, I would be using those words. We are small, we are elite, we can only accept 20 children in per year. Also highlight the fact, I was working with Angela yesterday. Angela, if you're tuning in, hi. And hope you don't mind I'm sharing this. But, I was working with Angela yesterday. She has a radio ad going up. And it was just, at first it was like, hi, moms and dads, come check out ABC Childcare. But what we really want to do is say, hey, this is Angela, and I'm a hands-on owner. You'll find me working and motivating the team every single day. So it's like, what makes you different? So there's a lot of centers where there's not a hands-on on-site owner. There's a lot of centers who don't even, parents don't even know who the owner is. So if that is something that makes your program unique, is because you are hands-on, you are there, you are in the trenches, that is definitely something to highlight. And to me, the biggest thing that makes people unique is their story. Everybody's got that story. Your story is different than the guy next door, and let people connect with your story. And this is, where we do a lot of work with our clients, is connecting with the story. And to me, it's a very, very powerful thing. Does that help?
Love it.
So on website?
No, it does.
Story.
I think it goes back to, as you said, look at what really makes your center unique. And sometimes I think it warrants just being a little bit more removed from your business, because I think a lot of times it's tough to see some of those kind of golden nuggets, or the things that make you a purple elephant, for example, because you get so ingrained in, I guess, the industry terminology and things like that. So you might say, well, we have, small classrooms, for example, and okay, that's fine. But if every other center has to maintain the same ratios as you, but if you're able to say, well, the ratio is 8-1, but we want to really give you that extra attention, and we only have 5-1, for example. So just things like that. But as you said, it really goes back to the story, and that typically is always going to have some more of the emotional words, some more of the things that really make you unique, the why you got behind the business. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and he always says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
They buy you. Yeah. There's a whole book, They Buy You Too, isn't it there? I think I have it somewhere. I forgot who wrote that one. But it's so true. If you want people to come and compare apples to apples and say, how are you the same? Or what makes you different? It's like, yep, okay, we've got a Zona, we've got ProCare, we've got tablets for everybody, we do this, we do that. But if you come up with some really heartfelt things, you're hands-on, you're on-site, maybe you do daily gratitude with the children. If you're a Christian program, maybe you're doing daily prayer time, maybe you pray with or for the families. So really embrace those things, because they're all an extension, and should be an extension of you and your vision and what you want to bring to life. So really look at what makes you unique, because it's you that makes you unique. So I like dancing. So when you come to my conferences or my events or whatever we do, there's some kind of dancing, there's music. Maybe Michael doesn't like dancing, so there's going to be something else going on at his. Maybe he's got a professional dancer who comes in to pump up the audience, whatever it might be. But you can find things that you resonate with that are just really an extension of you. And we have a client, who was telling her story, and her story was that, she had a horrible experience working in different childcare programs where she was not led effectively. So her uniqueness is that she really implements strategies and ideas to make each team member feel valued and cherished. So those are unique selling, points. And I would also talk about, what kind of training do you do with your staff? What kind of investment do you make in your team? Because that's really important to parents. So, be looking at letting them know, well, we have 2 conferences annual, or we have 2 professional development days, because their children are only going to follow the models that they see in the classrooms with communication, with everything else. So it's really important if you're investing in your staff, that might be something that makes you different.
Oh, and I think a lot of times the owners of the centers, they're either worried about kind of giving too much to the families. And what I mean by that is they're almost thinking, well, did they even need to know all this stuff? But you're going to have some families that they just want kind of the quick details. And they're still going to come in for a tour, and they're going to want to obviously connect with you, with the director, whomever is doing the tour, and just feel that they belong at that center. But you're also going to have some other families that they are wanting to read every little piece of copy that you have on your website. They're going to go as far as, if the owners and teachers and things like that are listed on the website, they're going to go and stalk them on Facebook and see what they think, and if they connect to them. And there's obviously a lot of different nuggets there. So we had a question from Mary Bell. So I'm going to show it here. So she said, how would you promote a family childcare you can't compare with a center? Thank you for the nuggets. So would love to hear your thoughts, Julie, and I'll give a nugget or 2 as well.
Yeah. To me, again, it's going back, to not even look at, well, I'm family, they're center-based. As a family childcare, what is it that you can do that a center-based program can't do? So maybe it's a certain kind of pet you have for the kids, or a certain kind of walks you could go on with the children. Or maybe it's something that's in your backyard that you're absolutely in love with, that the kids are going to get to experience because they're part of your program. So it is highlighting what you have and the things, and think about, you put your heart into your business, right? You put your heart, whether it's family, whether it's center-based, whether you're 7 chains or 27 chains, there's a part of your heart that goes into it. So what is it that you absolutely love about the program that you created? And I would highlight those things. And I tell you what, I really feel that even if you use cardboard boxes as toys, if you are excited about those cardboard boxes, somebody else is going to be excited about those too and say, yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that would teach them this and this and this and this and this skill. And it could even be a certain curriculum that you're really excited about. So number 1, recognize your own value. It does not come from whether you're family or whether you're center-based. And think about your parents and why they love you, and really highlight those things. And then think about, why it is that you love what you do, and highlight those things.
I like that a lot. And the other thing with, family childcare is that you're focusing on a really niche demographic, because there's going to be some people that's the exact type of center, or the exact type of childcare that they're looking for. Yeah. They want their kids to have a small bond with 5 kids, 8 kids, 10 kids, whatever you're licensed for at your house. And as Julie said, it's emphasizing those pieces and those points that really just make you also stand out with some of the other home childcare centers, and talk about your why. There's got to be a reason why you decided to do home childcare. You don't just magically decide to open up your house and have all these families and kids and things like that in your house. So talk about that. And is it because, well, your child or children are at that are staying there, and they're going to be interacting as well, and you want to make sure that they were well taken care of, and you didn't want to go back to corporate America, so that you wanted to do this as a way to be able to continue to be with your kids all the time, and also help a few other families out to have that niched experience and that bond. So there's a lot of, I met a a center. She was out in San Francisco, and I believe they were licensed for, I don't know, maybe 30, but she only wanted to take like 15 or 20. But it's really niched, I guess, in San Francisco, and really expensive. Like it was more than college. It was like $30,000 or $40,000 a year. I mean, big numbers. But I mean, she's got like a 4-year waiting list because childcare isn't easy to find, but in San Francisco. But it's just that niched experience of, you're going to, like, she had all these, I wouldn't say crazy, because I thought they were a little crazy, but when she started to explain it, it made sense. She goes, well, I want to know all the families that are coming in here. I want to know that they're not playing with other kids, that they're only playing with these, like they're building bonds with those kids. But it also gave those families peace of mind with all the stuff going on with the coronavirus and COVID, that they didn't have to worry that these kids were then playing with 50 other kids, that they were getting their playtime at the center. So, but that was in all of her branding. And I mean, that's just how she continued to put things out there. So.
Yeah, it's incredible. And another thing I would also suggest is listen. When parents call you about your program, or you talk to people about your program, whether it's family center-based, listen, what is their pain? And what you want to do is see what pain you connect with and what pain you are the solution for. So if their pain is that they're going to drop off little Johnny and he's not going to get one hug while he's at that childcare program, you put it in your marketing materials that we only have 10 students or whatever it might be, but this is a family childcare situation. We have 10 students, and I guarantee absolutely that every single child is going to get one big hug every single day. And that's just an example, but listen to the parents' pain and then speak from that perspective when you're on the phone with them or when you're giving the tour. But you ask questions and just really listen, and then see inside of your mind and ask yourself, well, how does my program help them overcome that challenge? And then that's what you sell them on. That's what you engage them with. Like, I could really relate to what you're saying, Mrs. Jones. And that's why here at our program, we do this and we do this and we do this. So I get it.
Love it. Well, Maribel, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hopefully everyone kind of got some nuggets already of kind of what we've been seeing over the last couple of days or so. And obviously everything is still fluid, and I hate that word, but I mean, it's still ever changing, but I want you to focus on the things that you can control. And I know that we talked a lot about more of the, what's the word? More of the, not just strategic, but more of the emotional elements of your business, of controlling your mindset and focusing on putting together your vision and rallying your team around the vision and doing Facebook Lives with your team and with your parents. I mean, right now it's really all about connection. When I used to have a lot of different membership websites and things like that, and we're selling a lot of products on marketing, I would always say that people, they're going to initially kind of come for the content, but they're going to stay for the community and the connection. And with everything as it is today, I mean, the families and these parents, they just want to feel connected. Your team needs that connection now more than ever, because I promise you that there are some of your competing centers are trying to woo your staff because they know that there's a lot of uncertainty. And there is going to be a lot of stuff around hiring and hiring shortages and things like that. But the more that you focus on, I guess maybe the word is the emotional elements, but more of the human elements, that's probably the better word. There's so many tactics that we can continue to give you, but if you don't have your mindset in the right place, if you don't have the vision for the business, and you don't even know where you're going, how could your staff get aligned with you? How can the families feel that energy if you're not putting out that energy and that vibe? so to speak.
That's so true. I so love that. And I absolutely 100% agree. And I always use this phrase. I always say that, if you are not connected with your own program and your own vision, how can you possibly expect anybody else to be connected? We try to fake it. We try to get others pumped up and excited about it. But if we're not really authentically and genuinely excited about what it is that we created, and we're putting it out there to the world to say, hey, look at what I created, and we're excited about that, we're going to fall short with marketing, with enrollments, with staff motivation, with everything. So the emotional component of this is critically important to me.
Love it.
Yeah.
So let's pivot over to kind of our topic for the day and spend the next 20 minutes or so on talking about difficult people.
Ooh, okay.
So difficult team, difficult vendors, difficult families, parents, leads, prospects, whomever that would be, a difficult spouse.
Yeah, right. True.
Yeah, but let's talk about that, because I really do believe that the less friction you have going on at your business, at least for me, anytime that I know that I have friction, so dealing with, usually for me, it's either a couple of difficult clients, but also some staff and things like that. But for me personally, it becomes very hard to then focus on anything else. Like I almost become borderline obsessed with it, where it takes over my brain and it takes over a mind of its own, where even if it's a really small thing, like I can't stop thinking about it until it's resolved.
You are so right. It does. It just becomes consuming. If there's a difficult situation, we start thinking about it. And then I believe that it stifles your creativity too, for the things that you really need to get to and the things that you really need to do. It can totally take over. And at one of our recent workshops, there was a difficult situation going on with a staff member. And I'm like, well, how long have you guys been dealing with the staff member? And they're like, 2 years now. And I'm like, well, how much of your time has that taken up? So we did a little calculation, and it turned out to like multiple thousands of dollars that this leadership team was investing just in trying to figure out this one person. So it does cost our organizations a lot when there are these kind of situations going on, because it's all consuming, like you said, Michael. It's so true. And we'll do a deep dive into this, but I want to know from our listeners, if you're dealing with a difficult situation, please share in the comments. If there's a question that you have about difficult people, I would love to answer it. And also, for participation, we are also going to be doing some weekly raffles for our Always Essential gear. What do you think of this one, Michael?
Love it. I got mine that you sent me, or actually that I ordered in the mail right here.
Oh, nice.
If my office wasn't 100 degrees, I would have this on, but
yeah, my office is freezing. So I'm like, you know what? I'm putting on the sweatshirt because this is it's like a cloud. It is yours is soft inside too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. No, it's really soft.
Is that important to a man? I don't know.
No, it definitely is. No, these are especially in the winters in Buffalo, and even in the cool nights, and the blue and the white and red looks awesome. No,
but to me, it's like, imagine you're doing a media interview, and you're on here talking, and it's like the world knows who you are and what you do. So and this is actually one of my favorites. I waited to order it, and I'm like, I want this one so bad. So this is one of my favorites. I just think it makes such a great statement. But we're going to be doing some weekly raffles for some Always Essential gear and some other stuff. So please make sure you comment, share this out. All those things will be taken into consideration for our raffle drawings. So we're going to be raffling off Always Essential gear. This is one design. Michael showed you a different one. And if you want your own hoodies, go to happychildcareteam.com. Amazing. My favorite. Okay. So difficult people. Where do we start?
Let's start with dealing with difficult parents, because one of the things that, at least that I've been seeing and hearing from a lot of the centers, is just, obviously there's going to be more questions around everything, but the good news is, at least for me, there's a lot of great hope, and it seems like we're on the downward spiral of this whole COVID thing. And in Western New York, Buffalo area, we're on phase 2. Phase 3 should start on Tuesday.
Awesome.
That's next week. So things are continuing to move in the right direction, and I'm seeing that around most parts of the United States. So definitely seems like we're on the tail end of things, and things are relaxing quite a bit. But there's still a lot of questions, and a lot of the centers are saying, well, Michael, what do we what do we say when you have someone that's like, I want little Johnny to be, 6 feet apart and his own bathroom and like all of these things. And I think there's just a lot of uncertainty around how do you handle that? Is that considered even a difficult person or difficult request? But usually, at least in the past, I think a lot of the difficulties have been more around dealing with families that aren't paying, for example. You feel like you're having to chase and you're like, oh, they're always giving me the runaround and all the checks in the mail. It's been in the mail for 4 months and things like that. So let's start with kind of dealing with difficult parents and families.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a little bit of a broken record, but it is about defining what you want. So when it comes back to reopening or having your center, however it's going to be, I would put pen to paper and just write out how it's going to be, what it's going to be like, and then really work on your ability to attract the right people to you. Because a lot of times we go in this and we have the vision, then we're like, oh, but this parent wants this and the staff member wants this. So we bend and we bend and we bend and we bend until we just snap and we break and we're like, okay, this vision is so convoluted. It's everybody else's, but it's not mine. So what we want to do is pull the vision back to where it's yours. And right now, after the show wraps up, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just write down, well, what does the picture look like? And if you can't put it in words, draw pictures, call somebody and talk to them about it, but get to that place where inside of yourself, you feel like, yeah, this is really what I want. And we'll make some adjustments or some, tweaks here and there, but this is what I want to transpire. So if parents come in and they say, well, I only want a center that's going to have kids be 6 feet apart and this and this and this, you got to ask yourself, is that you, or are they better off going somewhere else? And maybe you can have your network of childcare owners who you could say, well, that's not our program, but you can go here and talk to this person. And then you're doing them a service. And the whole point of being in business to me is to be able to serve and to give people and to give to people and to serve them in the highest capacity that we can. And if we kind of take people and just because we need the money, it's not really serving them in the highest capacity. So we've got to get really, really, really warm and fuzzy with that vision again, and then look at the boundaries that we're going to have in place for what we allow into our program and what we tolerate. And this becomes the biggest piece is that, it's not only that people become difficult, it's that our tolerations become great. And when we start tolerating a lot, the whole picture becomes totally overwhelming. So really think about the things that you're tolerating and how we could start eliminating those tolerations to really clear your energy so that you become a magnet for the things that you want to attract.
I like it. So we'll let you take that particular side because that's your area of expertise. I think mine is more on. So if you take everything that you just said, so that's obviously piece number one is making sure that you are attracting the right people, because when you're attracting the right families, they're going to be a lot less difficult and they're going to love working with you.
But imagine that there's no fear. Whether you're talking about a lover, whether you're talking about a friend, whether you're talking about an employee, imagine living in a place where there's no fear because you know that you could always attract another person to be in that situation with you, to be a client, to be a staff member, and that's what we work really hard with our clients is removing that fear so that you're in the space of like, I don't have to worry about Mrs. Jones. She's not a good fit. I'm going to attract somebody else.
Oh, definitely. And that's when I've looked at how I've kind of dealt with difficult clients, for example, that key word that you just said is fear. And if you know, and it's also removing yourself from being attached to it.
That's so true.
Once you kind of remove the attachment, and usually the attachment is one of a couple things, but more often than not, it's initially related to money. So you're attached to, oh my gosh, things are already tight. And if you're operating from that fear mindset and that attachment, well, if I lose that, and that's $800 a month times 10 months, and oh, geez, if they were to refer, like I'm going to lose all this money. But what you don't realize is just all of the time and energy that you're wasting and spending on that particular topic. You're not realizing also, and this is one thing that I don't think a lot of people think about, is if you have someone that's difficult or really candidly toxic, They're
Mm.
going to be talking to the other parents. So what do
Yeah.
you think they're going to be doing when they're sitting at parent watch night for something or attending one of the fun events and things like that? Because if they're not happy, you're going to see them whispering like, oh, I can't believe that XYZ teacher did this, or oh, do you believe it? And it's going to multiply the effect.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes a lot more sense to clear that out much sooner than later.
Absolutely.
And if you know that you're going to be able to attract more enrollments and things like that, and obviously it's I would say 50-50. It's part mindset and having the vision, and then the other 50%
Mhm.
is the execution piece of the tactical side. But if you know that you have all of that stuff in order, there really is no good reason to keep a difficult parent,
Yeah.
because they like to talk. And if you know that type of, I know you mentioned you had a whole course on gossip. I mean, that gossip multiplies. And I can tell you, I've seen a lot of childcare centers go up in smoke, in the sense of they had 100 enrollments and all of a sudden they lose 50 overnight
Mm.
because someone posted on one of the mommy blogs or one of the mommy Facebook pages or whatnot, and the gossip just kind of went nuts. Oh, you can't believe this. And then all of a sudden 15 parents comment, and all of a sudden, I mean, it literally can destroy things. So
Yeah.
got to make sure that you're not attracting those people and that you're keeping a very close eye.
Yeah, and it's true. And I've had owners who called me and said, I had a successful program, and then the gossip hit, people became difficult, and it was like this whole conspiracy against me. And then I closed down. There was no business. So especially if you're in a small town where everybody knows everything, then yeah, it does make it hard, but it is so true. Find out what those tolerations are and eliminate it from your program earlier. But also, think about this, and this is what I thought about with every difficult person that I attracted in my life. Think about, they're showing up because there's something you need to learn. They're showing up because there's something that you have yet to discover about you. And for a period in my life, like I said, my whole life, it was abusive relationship. It was a very difficult father growing up. No offense, love my dad dearly, but, difficult growing up, difficult, work relationships, really finding and attracting these strange people to myself, where I was like, all right, what am I supposed to learn from this? I'm like, well, maybe I'm supposed to learn this so that I could teach this to others. But they keep showing up. So think about the lessons that you learned from every difficult person that you encounter. And then I think a big trick is that every time you encounter a new difficult person, you purposely choose to react in a different way. Because a lot of us get stuck in repeating patterns. So we have a difficult person, we react a certain way, we tell our staff about how horrible that person is, whatever it might be, boom, done, we move on. But we might move on, but our staff now is having all these negative thoughts about this person that they don't release, right? So it's like every single time, it's like, are you in this repeating pattern, or are you putting strategies in place to break out of the pattern? So a certain situation happens with your spouse, you get ticked off, and you always get ticked off, and then that leads to an argument, and that leads to this, and this whole circle just starts flowing. So next time it's like, your spouse becomes difficult, think to yourself, can I respond in a whole different way that's going to get me a different result? So maybe it's having a sense of humor. Maybe it's understanding things from his perspective. One thing that I do a lot with my family is I'm like, do you need a hug? So I don't take it personally, because it's a situation that they're going through. They were triggered. Now I'm just there in the brunt of it. And I'll be like, do you need a hug? And, somebody will, no, I don't need a hug. I'm like, are you sure? You look like you need a hug. So you don't let it sink in, into the layers of your skin where you hang on to it. And that's the dangerous point, is when things start sinking in, and then it becomes like this buildup inside of you. And I've worked on site with teams who were going through conflict, and we pulled two people together to have a mediation, and one's throwing chairs at the other one because of how much frustration she has from all of these situations. So challenge yourself. If you're attracting difficult people or situations, how can you give yourself a new experience the next time somebody becomes difficult? Can you smile? Can you send them a thank you note? Can you do whatever? And And as crazy it sounds, that's how I've transformed relationships a lot in my life, is with gratitude. And I remember in corporate America, I was dealing with this man. His name was Ed Marsh. And I was a financial manager, and the financial managers were part of corporate, and then they would be part of each organization. So it's like we managed budgets for people who we didn't directly work for. And it became a real fear-based situation, especially when budgets would get cut. And Ed had his finger pointed in my face, pointed in my face, and my supervisor was right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be good. But what I learned to do was to really build a strong, positive relationship with Mr. Marsh. And by the time our work relationship ended, he was inviting me out to go fishing with him and these different things. So it's like, you can totally transform these relationships. I would go into his office and I would look at a picture and I'm go, oh, that's a really cool picture. And I would find different things to bond with him about. And I'd write him a thank you note for that meeting. And it was very insightful. And I heard what you said. And these were the discussion points that we had. So I really worked just to be in a real healthy, positive relationship. When I did that, it was like everything was changing around me. So it was all unfolding, but it was so different.
And the other thing that I started to realize, just even with my team, but then looking at, when we're talking marketing and things like that with the center owners and directors, there's always something else that comes up. So, the marketing could be firing on all cylinders, but if someone isn't effectively closing the leads, so I'll say, well, tell me more about, what's going on here? And a lot of times I'll hear, well, they're terrible. They're not doing their job. They're clearly not effective. And my favorite line is kind of, tell me more. And trying to think of a book, like a book around kind of coaching, and it'll hit me at some point in this conversation. It was a really great book. But tell me more, kind of what's on your mind, essentially, and kind of continue to start to unfold. But what I started to realize, though, was not only could he be overheard in the office when we were having these conversations, because then on the other team, we're like, geez, if he's talking about, let's say her name is Sarah like that, I wonder what he's saying about me. And then it creates all these other unintended consequences.
Yeah.
That it's never a great thing to be complaining about your team. I know we were talking about kind of parents and families initially, but if you're looking at your team, that's never a good thing to do, because it's
and I think and asking more questions is a great way, and I really encourage everybody to do that, is ask more questions. But another thing too, and I want everybody to think about this, is can you incorporate a culture of responsibility where everybody takes responsibility? So instead of they did this, she did this, well, it's about, well, what is it that you would ideally like to transpire in this situation? First question. And then second question is, well, how can you take responsibility for making that happen? So we help people, and what we want to do is have responsibility be one of our values, that we're all responsible for what is transpiring. And this really starts with the owner saying a lot, I'm responsible. And if everybody starts taking responsibility on greater levels, then we're going to be having this organization of staff members who feel they're responsible, and that they could take responsibility for situations that are unfolding. So we really want to propel people out of the victim mode, because when we're in the victim mode, he did this, she did this, they always do that, we feel fear, and then the outcome is not going to be as productive as we would like it to be. So when we go to victim mode, we go to fear, and then we sit in this place that doesn't serve the project that we're working on, or the tasks that we want to get done, or the clients who we want to attract.
The other thing that just kind of hit me, and I remember that we started doing this internally, was the more that you can, and this goes for both the families as well as your team, the more that you can make them either feel or have ownership within your organization. So what I mean by that is, if you look at your team, what if there are some metrics that correlate back to profitability, team member happiness, and let's see the core values, is everyone living the core values? And then you have some prizes and rewards. So a lot of times companies will do this quarterly. So I've seen it done quarterly. Really good book, Rockefeller Habits, and they kind of teach similar methodologies where you kind of have that one big rock for the quarter.
Mhm.
So let's say your rock is just all about, again, I'm just spitballing here, but maybe the next quarter is the focus is team bonding. And then you just put together all these metrics of what are we going to do and how are we going to measure from where we are today to where we are in 3 months, for example. So team bonding means everyone knows everyone's spouse's name or their kids' names. They happiness levels. You make all these different metrics and things like that.
Mhm.
And then there's a fun reward and prize that if we hit these metrics, we're going to do XYZ. So we're going to do a barbecue for all the staff, and you can bring your spouse and kids, and we're just going to have a fun barbecue. And then
Mhm.
the next quarter, you have something else. So it starts to, people kind of start to change the way that they would either react or the way that they're interacting with you if they know that they're really, if they have some kind of ownership stake, so to speak. And it also goes for the families that the more that you can do to kind of continue to build that community of parents and families. And maybe I've seen some centers where they've done it where, and it's not just you're measuring the happiness level of the families, but they've done different things where if certain milestones are hit, then they're going to grant, a scholarship, or there's different things, or they're going to buy some new playground equipment and things like that. But what you do is, instead of it just being kind of a business to consumer relationship, you really start to bring in the parents a little bit more, where they feel and they actually do have more of a say. I found that when you start to transition those relationships,
Mm.
conversations and the attitudes are very, very different, because they feel almost like it's part of theirs, so to speak.
I so agree with that. And if there's anything, with dealing with difficult people, clients, staff members, it's about the relationship that you have. And this is one way, especially with clients, if you are not building positive relationships with them, when something hits, when turmoil hits, you've got to ask yourself, well, whose side are they going to be on? Who are they going to be an ally to? If there's allegations of abuse, if there's a staff member saying something else, but if they know you and if you've got a positive relationship with them, I tell you what, as an owner, I know your hands are full, and I know it's like, well, but Julie, I can't do that. It doesn't take a lot of time just to get to know your parents and to let them know that you are there to serve them and to serve, first and foremost, the vision. You could set up a monthly Zoom chat where you just have all your parents in, and it's like virtual coffee with, whoever or whatever it might be. We were doing, live things, in-person things, we would do like little monthly networking events where it's appetizers with Angela. Come out once a month, get an appetizer, and let's talk. And I'm going to share with you successes that we've been seeing here in our program. So we don't really want to just treat our clientele like, hey, they're going to enroll and woohoo, happy dance, I'm on my way. It's about building a relationship from the very first mention of your name to them. You are in a relationship and you want to help them feel what it's like to be in your energetic circle. And it's an amazing place.
Well, if you think about that, the families are going to be a lot less likely to be going on there and bashing something. Even if they're unhappy, they're going to at least bring it to you first.
Right.
But if you have no connection, if they don't feel that they really have any say in your center, or they don't feel like they're not just, again, connected, but clued in, they don't really know what's going on, that like there's no bond, they're going to go to Facebook and they're going to leave a negative review. They're going to go and gossip about your center. But if you have, it's like a friend relationship that you hope that they're at least going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, center owner, I appreciate everything that you're doing. I heard this, just wanted to bring it to your attention and also just see if it was true or not.
Yeah.
That at least they're going to bring it to you first.
Yes.
Rather than, because that's the tough thing in this particular industry and business, is that negative, not even just negative reviews, but stories and anything. Like, there's so much gossip in this type of industry that, well, why did the director leave? And the director went over to this particular center, and that must mean that your center is terrible if the director left. And
Right.
and they don't know anything, not that they need to know all of the details, but if they have that connection, they're at least not going to jump to conclusions. Or we've seen a director leave and all of a sudden 20 enrollments walk out the door. And it,
enrollments, 5 staff members.
it's just,
Yeah.
and it's in those types of situations, I would argue that there clearly was not a great connection with the owner and the staff and the team.
Mhm.
And there must not have been a lot of transparency with the parents, and they maybe had that connection with the director,
Yeah.
because then the director obviously is helping lead the charge. But it's just, there's all of these unwanted consequences that really can negatively impact your business.
That's so true. And you're pointing out some incredible things. And it is the relationship, and it is, when there's not communication, what are they going to believe? And if they're searching for answers and don't know where to go, there's not like a forum in place or something where they could go to get an answer. Yeah, they're just going to go to Facebook and say, hey, has anybody else dealt with this? And they'll start looking for things to back up what they're feeling and what they're thinking. But if you've got a monthly chat form in place or a weekly conference call that everybody can get on with you for an hour, whatever it might be, those things will help get their questions answered and dissolve their fear. And especially in times of negativity or where there's things going on, in absence of communication, our minds will default to the negative. So if a staff member is all of a sudden just erased from your childcare program, they no longer exist, and you have somebody new in place, and parents are like, whoa, what happened? And we really didn't give them the opportunity to understand the situation, or at least be in tune, or at least, at the very minimum, know that, hey, this is Miss Susan's vision, and she's always making hiring choices in alignment with that, and always looking to up-level her staff. But in absence of communication, minds will default. People become fearful, and then people react negatively.
So we've got a good question from Deirdre. And Deirdre says, one of the most difficult things in our school is to get parents to stop and chat for no reason. They grab our coffee and homemade muffins. Oh, that sounds good. I'm hungry. On the way out the door, any suggestions? How do you build relationships in this case?
Yeah, I think if Deidre sends us each a homemade muffin, we'll have a great answer for
Definitely.
her.
I like it.
I don't know. What kind of muffins are those, Deidre? And I think it's about, getting to know your parents too. So if you really want them to stay and talk with you, maybe you could do something on Saturday mornings when they're not out running around, or you could even survey your parents to say, we'd really like to facilitate more of a positive relationship with everybody. When would be a good time where you would come in, grab a cup of coffee, and we could have a chat. And these days we could do it virtually. So definitely we could do it on Zoom. We could do it Saturday mornings, but I'm always surveying. You'll see in our Childcare Business Success Group, it's like, what day of the week works good for this? What would be good for this? So ask them, we'd really like to get to know you better. What day would be good? And then, really importantly also is when you bring in new clientele, state your expectations. We value connection with parents. So in order to maintain positive connections and open lines of communication, we do coffee and homemade muffins on the third Thursday of every month. And we ask that you allow a certain amount of time in your schedule so that you could be here for 10 or 15 minutes to say hello and to chat and to network. So define what it's going to look like, and then make it part of your orientation process for your new parents. So that's really important. And I know when I signed up for my chiropractor a year and a half ago, he said the one thing that was a requirement as a patient of his was that I come to one of his evening workshops. It was a requirement for all new patients. And I got it in, and you're supposed to do it like within the first 30 days. And I did it, but he stated that expectation. And although he did it, sometimes it was like, he wanted more referrals, whatever it might be, it was to build a relationship with you so that you can understand the basis of how his chiropractic care worked and how your body would be open to making these changes happen that you're going to be doing with traction. But so anyways, state your expectations, define what it is, and state your expectations, and communicate those, and post up notes about it too. Hey parents, on the third Thursday of every month, it's our coffee and homemade donuts or homemade muffins. Come and join us. So make sure they're getting that communication.
Love it. I mean, when it's scheduled and when they're aware of it, they'll find the way to make time. I mean, when it comes to their children's schooling and childcare and things like that, parents will move mountains. They'll go to work late, things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the mornings are always tough in general for a lot of families, because the whole point of childcare is they're dropping their children off and headed to work, so they're probably multitasking, thinking about a million other things. But to your point, I think having, and it's also can be that virtual connection of the Facebook group. So if you don't already have a Facebook group for the parents, that's a great way to build those connections. And then we like to always just encourage kind of finding another hidden agenda. So, for example, you're going to have your children's artwork displayed. So it's a little bit of an art thing, but it's also a meet and greet with the teacher, and you get a few minutes with the teacher, and then you get to meet the owner for 5 minutes. So it's kind of, you're kind of killing a couple of birds with one stone, and you're kind of disguising it a little bit, but they're getting just to kind of have that warm and fuzzy with everyone. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but we've found mornings are really, really challenging to try and grab them for an extra 10 or 15 minutes, because they're just, at least for me in the mornings, my mind is on a million other things, and it's typically not work. So
and you could see what works, coffee in the morning if they come in early or if they can stay late. But you could even do it like a special monthly, where it's once a month, this thing happens here. Get a masseuse in with a massage chair, give prizes away, celebrate successes and milestones that you've seen from the children in your care. Celebrate Mrs. Smith's child's done this and this one's done this. Use it as an opportunity to celebrate and to create some fun and excitement in these parents' lives. So I would stage it as a little bit of an event. And you could even tell mom or dad, hey, bring a friend. Who do you know that would love to come and celebrate little Johnny's progress with you? Bring a friend and, have a coffee and a muffin and celebrate successes. You're going to build your clientele too.
Love it. So hopefully that was helpful.
Deidre, did we help? Was that good?
So they're blueberry muffins. So that sounds great.
Ooh, I was craving a blueberry muffin yesterday. Now I have to go have one.
So we are already coming up on the top of the hour. So what I would love to do, as we always do, is give an action and or tip from each of us, kind of from today's episode. And then we always end with our positive quote. So for the action step that I'm going to give you for today is to find one way that you can build a deeper connection with your team, and one way you can build a deeper connection with your parents. So whether that's events, whether that's handwritten notes, whether that's the Facebook group, whatever that is, I want you to find a way to strengthen that bond, to kind of get it to where it's more of a friend type of relationship rather than just a business to consumer relationship. So that would be my tip and action tip for you.
I love it. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that everything with relationships is so much easier. Without relationships, it all becomes harder. So I would really take those words into consideration. My action step will be to be an observer. When you are in a difficult situation, and we didn't talk about this, so I'm just going to give you this as a little extra thing here, is just to pause. And they say that it takes about 6 seconds for the emotional side of our brains to catch up with the logically thinking side of our brains. So when we're caught up in a difficult situation and we respond and react right away, chances are we're going to be responding and reacting emotionally. And then it's not going to be pretty, and we're going to say something or do something we wish we didn't. So give yourself at least 6 seconds, to respond, so that you come at things from a more logical perspective and can really implement a solution that will be workable for everybody. So take those 6 seconds and think in terms of responsibility. I'm responsible for all the situations that I create around me. So in this situation, what is it that I want to have happen? And how do I take responsibility for moving closer to that place?
Spot on. Love it. Love it.
Ooh, that was a mouthful.
So do you have a quote for us for today? We always like to end with a positive quote.
All right, we shall pull one. What page? Maybe we should just pick a page number. All right, let me see here. Okay. I know we talked about overwhelm on a couple of shows ago, so let's talk. Well, this is just great for mindset. So this is from our Childcare Business Success book, where in every chapter we have a quote, and this chapter is called Leap Out of Overwhelm. So whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Do you know who said that? It's old.
Yeah,
So whether you think you can or you think you can't, and I've heard it said a couple different ways. You prove yourself right.
I can see it, but I can't put my finger on it.
Okay, so he created a car
Henry Ford.
Yeah. So that was Henry Ford. So, and I used to have a huge stack of quotes that I would go through, but it would take me a little while to remember them these days too, like who said what. But that was by Henry Ford, who accomplished a lot during his lifetime. And going back to mindset, do you think you can, or do you focus more on you can't? And if you can, you will.
Love it. So I hope that everyone enjoyed today's episode. We'll be back here on Thursday. And as always, if you want to learn more about myself or Julie, my website is localchildcaremarketing.com. Julie, where would you like people to go?
Oh, you could go to childcarebusinesssuccess.com. There's lots of free training there for you, as well as our Drive Masterclass that you could sign up for. And if you want to look like this on camera, make sure you go to happychildcareteam.com and get your hoodies, tanks, t-shirts, and we will be doing raffles here. So please make sure you comment or share this out, like it, and you'll have the chance to win some weekly goodies.
Love it. So tune back in here on Thursday. We're also going to look at potentially moving the time back a little bit. So for anyone that's rewatching the replay, if there's a time that you think is better for you, we're looking at maybe moving it to the afternoon. Some people aren't morning people, but give us some feedback on that as well. So as always, thank you ever so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Bye.